Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the last part of a series of articles entitled The Rise of Urban Air Mobility Unlocking the Future of the Skies. And this is part three. I'll link to part one and two. This is where we discuss what do vertiports look like, what are they, and how do they fit within the grand scope of what we call advanced air mobility, or AAM. We hope you've enjoyed this. We look forward to your comments, to your thoughts and suggestions. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicholas Zard. I am the founder and CEO of Electric Air Mobility LLC, a company that conceptualizes designs, and implements vertiport infrastructure and energy solutions. So what this means is I've been around for 17 years in the electric mobility industries, probably about 20 all in all if you include my interest early on. And I found that some things obviously work better than others. I've been a consultant and a journalist all this time, meaning I have a very deep insight into the EV world, and now, of course, the advanced air mobility world. So, in part one, we really looked at the overall grand scheme of what are vertiports. In part two, we started diving a little bit more into details. But in part three, I want to wrap it up, and we're going to talk about, about a few things, basically. So, the future of transportation is obviously electric, right? All the money's going into it and not. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. CEOs don't wake up and think what's on your mind. Trust me, I've asked them, they don't. And anyway, they've already made plans and they're going to break even at some point. They're just trying to slow down the pace as much as possible so that they continue making money. All perfectly normal, nothing unusual. So in this final part here, we're really going to look at the regulatory landscape, the management system, and of course the important need for strategic planning today instead of tomorrow, which is a very costly thing to do. And this is where I started off right now is you really need to work on those designs right now. And one thing that Electric Air Mobility LLC does exceptionally very well is that we are an all-encompassing solution provider. We work with various solutions and providers out there. So we don't sell our own products or services. We find what the best ones are for your particular need. The important thing is, when I get asked, so it's 10 years down the road. Well, no, we're flying next year. Well, why aren't we flying now? Well, it's really, my tagline is there are more solutions than obstacles, and technology is not an obstacle. In 2019, EHang was flying its, which one was it? A 216, I forgot which one, from one side of the Yellow River to another in Guangzhou, right? So that was happening already. I saw the Joby S4 fly almost 2 years ago, and I saw the not the Midnight, the one before, I already forgot now, flying. So eVTOLs fly. I've been on simulators. They do fly. We know how to make things fly. The one thing that's missing and being worked on right now, and this is where the real race is regulation. So if you look at the regulatory bodies such as the Federal Aviation Agency, the FAA in the US, or EASA in Europe, those are the two big main heavy hitters. And what they are doing is, when it comes to the US, we are really basing everything we're doing on Executive Brief 101, EB 105, sorry, not 101. It is a 101, I guess. But EB 105 gives us the fundamentals as to how a landing pad, or a vertipad in our case, should be, what the slopes are as far as incoming traffic and outgoing traffic. And when it comes to EASA, they also have probably a little bit bigger of a scope around what a vertiport, or how vertiports should be designed, and that's their PTS, VPT, and DSN. I don't know if we can call it a brief, but anyway, it's all formats, and it's wonderful for us to go for because that's what we base our designs on. So all in all, it's safe to say that regulators are excited about electric mobility. But you have to remember that these guys, especially here in the US, in the 1960s, they hung on to a wing and said, all right, flight worthy. Today, we're not telling them about pistons, turbines, or kerosene. We're telling these guys about propellers with electric motors, with controllers, with battery management systems and batteries, and sometimes not just one battery. Most of the time it's not just one battery, but two or more battery packs, which means more battery management system, BMS. So this is a really steep learning curve that they have gone through, thankfully, about a decade ago. Now what they're doing is they're laying down the foundation. So overall, all eyes are on the FAA and EASA. They're the two main big guys out there. Well, simply enough, because most of the business of the commercial aspect of advanced air mobility will be in the US and in Europe. But that's not to say that Asia isn't moving very quickly. Asia is. In fact, the Chinese aviation authorities is moving extremely fast, and some might even say maybe a little too fast, but we don't really know exactly what's going on out there. JCAB, the Japanese version of the FAA and EASA, is also moving very fast. However, they have what we call shadow agreements with both the FAA and EASA. So right now, for instance, we'll talk about this in not too long, but SkyDrive is working with JCAB, that is working with the FAA and EASA, and as you can see, a certification with JCAB is almost a certainty that you will get an FAA regulation certification or an EASA certification. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it's working very well together. So a company that's based in another country that has these shadow agreements or parallel agreements with the FAA and EASA only has to go to one regulatory body and then make sure it is tweaked for the others. In other words, they don't have to start from scratch. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in some other articles. I'm so glad I'm finishing this third one here. So let's move on to the convergence of infrastructure, and this is really the convergence of mobility, which is a big theme in everything that I've been doing for the last 17 years, and the culmination of electric air mobility. Yes, it says air, but really we're talking about the convergence of mobility. And when I look at it, electric convergence of mobility just wouldn't have sounded as nice as electric air mobility. So AAM represents a convergence of mobility and energy paradigm. And why do I think of energy paradigm? Because when you think of an airport, you think of a heliport, well, usually there's only avgas, Jet A or some sort of kerosene, and eventually down the road we'll have sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. But when we think of vertiports, now we bring into the mix electric charging stations. And not only that, but we're also talking about storage, battery storage solutions. Not only that, but now we're talking about hydrogen. We're talking about creating hydrogen, storing hydrogen right next to other liquid fuels. So as you see, fuels, not fools, haha. As you see, it's a little bit more involved than a traditional airport is or a traditional heliport is. So one thing that we know for now is we've only begun to scratch the surface of what advanced air mobility has to offer for us. And it is an incredibly complex vision to put together. And in this case, I try to do it in 3 series. I am writing a book about it. Whether or not I'll make it is another story, but it's very complicated. So to future-proof our skies, we must design or design everything that we're about to build with scalability in mind, meaning expansion, meaning incorporating smart grid technologies, meaning a vertiport that's only one vertipad needs to grow into a vertiport or vertihub at some point. And you've seen the difference between vertistop, vertiport, and vertihubs in our last series, in our last article. And that's why we are working with so many incredible companies. I would be remiss if I didn't name at least here's one of them, True Weather. I love True Weather because they have a micro weather solution. So they tell you exactly what's going on there. But we also work with the Edge company that can detect birds 4 miles away with cameras, by the way, not with radar. So much more affordable than that. But we also work with big OEMs, and I'm not going to go into too much of that. That's part of the secret sauce that electric air mobility has to offer. So we really focus on expansion readiness, smart grid capacities for vertiports, renewable energy balance. And what I mean by that is, again, having electricity and storage, hydrogen and storage, Jet A fuels, and of course, if we have enough space, solar farms. If there is enough space, wind farms. And if we have, of course, if we're next to some hydropower, well, hydropower, right? Okay, so all of that makes sense. And, of course, This also means we have been looking and continue to look into nuclear energy, but I've already spoken about that. So all of this, if you start to put all of that into consideration, needs a very serious and robust management system. This is where the crux of our work is and relies and lays on. It's a vertiport management system is the brains behind AAM operations. It's really the glue that bonds everything together into a coherent and hopefully seamless experience for you, travelers of the future. So a vertiport management system really coordinates eVTOL traffic. Who's coming in? Where are they going? Who are they carrying? What are the passengers? What are their affiliations? What kind of luggages are they bringing? Are there luggages associated to that? Is the drone operations taking care of that? What is the drone operations doing right now? Is there surveillance in the air? So all of this needs to be meshed into taking into consideration how much electricity did I get last night? How much electricity is stored? How much hydrogen did I produce last night? How much is stored? How much liquid fuels do I have? And how much energy will I need today considering all of this traffic coming in and coming out? Also add to it very simple things like you have recurring passengers and traffic patterns, right? So some passengers like coffee better than tea. Why would you do that? I like tea better than coffee. But anyway, this way you can also prepare and predict the predictability of your passengers' habits. They like to have coffee, they like to have tea, some like to read something, some vertihubs at least might want to stop in between and watch a show or something like that. Drone operation is something we don't always talk about, I find, with our competition, and it's also usually separated from eVTOLs, and nothing could be further from the truth. Drone operations or unmanned aerial systems and passenger service, eVTOL passenger service, work together. They're seamless. They're part of the whole vision, if you wish. Drone operations will help us manage traffic management. Manage traffic management, that's a good one. But it will help us manage air traffic. That will help us understand this eVTOL is coming. There's a cloud coming over there. There's law enforcement working over here. There's a fire over here. There's an accident on this highway, so on and so forth. So this is really your eyes in the sky kind of thing that need to be rationalized. All of these moving parts, it needs some serious coordinating power. And I'm talking about, computational power. Vertiport management systems manage not only where aircrafts are coming from and heading, but they also allocate landing spots, potential charging and refueling resources. And so this really means how vertiport operators and owners will plan for the resources of the day. And this means, where are you going to crunch all of that data? Where are you going to store all of that data? Thankfully, my IT background, I had an IT company in the 90s and early 2000s, helps me understand how that looks like. I used to design databases. I used to design networks of computers. I used to design websites. So one day we'll talk about UX, because boy, do we need a reboot in that world. But it helps me also understand where and how we can house and we can crunch that data. And also, what services are we going to use? Are we going to use Microsoft's Azure system or Amazon's AWS? Also understanding the geopolitical consequences of each, because as you may or may not know, AWS works in China, but others don't. Google and Microsoft don't. So there's a lot of these things that you need to understand before having a very complete and strategic vision for vertiport networks that you are preparing, such as the ones that we're preparing. A big one that we haven't even broached yet is the data security and storage. And this is really sort of, we're flying in the cloud, pun intended. Because with AAM generating vast amounts of data, we need to, more than ever, already conceptualize what does this data look like, how do we secure this data, and how do we store it in critical places so that it's redundant, it's available, and safe. So safety is always on the mind of anything in aerospace, and that includes the unpalpable things like electrons and electronics. So these are some of the things that we are already working with. We're working with some interesting data encryption and security people from all over the world. And one of our new contacts now is somebody who has extensive experience in the Israeli government, who is an American citizen, works here in the US, so really understands not only geopolitical dynamics, but also the importance of securing data. Personally, I use Linux at home. I'm filming all of this on Linux. OBS is an open source platform product. I understand the importance of privacy. I understand the importance of security. And of course, anything that's open source is always welcome, more or less, into our lives. However, there's a lot of integration that needs to happen, and this is really where we do our best work at Electric Air Mobility. Is we have the understanding of that. As I've mentioned before, my partners are from the traditional, conventional aerospace industries. They understand operations. They understand the basic laying blocks of the aerospace industry. But I come from the electric mobility industry, so I understand its unique aspects. I understand how electricity plays a leading part in it all, and how to synchronize all of that through my last 20 years of experience in this industry. The key takeaway from this series that I wrote here and that I filmed here is the urgency of strategic planning today for AAM. And that means not having to catch up maybe as much tomorrow because you forgot to include something in there. And this is where Electric Air Mobility LLC really shines, because we are not pushing a solution or a product, but really putting together a bunch of solutions and products that are really, that will answer your specific needs. And especially with our background, which basically are decades of experience in both industries, aerospace and electric mobility, we understand all the little gotchas and caveats of everything you need to plan for today, not tomorrow. Remember, once you've sunk $2 million into your most basic vertiport and all of a sudden you realize, uh-oh, I have no room to grow, what are you going to do? And you're certainly not going to turn to your investors who are going to be demanding returns on investments right now. Remember, investors are not easy to deal with, but that's something that we do. That's something that we know how to do. We also do communications with investors, and that helps a lot, because educating your investors, boy, that really helps the project go forward. So overall, Electric Air Mobility is poised to take off, pun intended. It's an easy one. But we're moving away, especially in 2024, we're moving away from sensational headlines and into tangible progress. Our experienced partners in aerospace and the electric mobility companies that we're working with are already manufacturing. I mean, SkyDrive is already manufacturing its SDO5. It's, 2 passenger, 1 pilot eVTOL. And of course, what we do best here at Electric Air Mobility LLC is we put the pieces together, offering a uniform and comprehensive AAM Vertiport ecosystem for all the different cases out there. I'm going to leave you with a little tidbit here, because I think it's important to say this. We don't chase after the news because we don't really particularly want it. We don't chase after sensational anything because we don't need to be billions of dollars funded. We know what we do. We're partnered with some extremely robust companies that are so well funded that they don't need any funding. So I'll tell you what we're working on right now. We're working on a series of vertiport networks in the Middle East, and they are international. And I have to tell you, this is probably the highlight of my professional career, because I not only get to design a vertiport from scratch, but I get to work with heliports that can be modified to take in electric aircraft traffic. Think of how incredible this is. Some heliports can be modified to accept electric traffic, meaning we can put a charging station somewhere, we can put hydrogen production somewhere, but some can't. So with those who can, we needed to do it slightly outside, and then in some cases we need to build a vertiport from scratch that is not only a vertiport but also a heliport. And I've got to tell you one thing, this is one of the greatest things that we've ever done. And as you can imagine, no press releases here, no MOUs, no LOIs. We're not interested in that. But when the shovel hits the ground, we're out there right now. We're doing the work. And once it's finished, or maybe even before, you'll hear about it and in greater details. But we're very excited to be probably a few months to a year ahead of most of our competition out there. Haha, challenge on. So we hope that you've enjoyed this Vertiport series. I'm working on the next series with also more articles in mind. I'm always happy and interested in hearing about your thoughts, your comments, and everything. Please write your comments right here. Let me know what you would like to hear, to know about. Let me know if you have any questions. And I think that's about it. So once again, my name is Nicolas Zard. I am the founder and CEO of Electric Air Mobility, as you can see up here. And I hope you've enjoyed this series, and I hope you're looking forward to the next few things we have in store for you. Thank you, and we'll see you later.